Chapter 15. They moved apart from each other after that, drifting away one by one, finding patches of solitude in which to think their separate thoughts. Eyes wandered restlessly across the valley's glistening carpet of black rock, always returning to the Scions, carefully searching the sluggishly churning waters for signs of some new movement. There was none. Perhaps nothing is going to happen, Pa thought. Perhaps it was all a lie, after all. He felt his chest constrict with mixed feelings of disappointment and relief, and he forced his thoughts elsewhere. Cole was less than a dozen paces away, but he refused to look at him. He wanted to be alone. There were things that needed thinking through, and Cole would only distract him. Funny how much effort he had put into distancing himself from his brother since this journey had begun, he thought suddenly. Perhaps it was because he was afraid for him. Once again, this time angrily, he forced his thoughts elsewhere. Cogline. Now, there was an enigma of no small size. Who was this old man who seemed to know so much about everything? A failed druid, he claimed. Allanon's messenger, he said, but those brief descriptions didn't seem nearly complete enough. Pa was certain that there was more to him than what he claimed. There was a history of events behind his relationships with Allanon and Walker Bow that was hidden from the rest of them. Allanon would not have gone to a failed druid for assistance, not even in the most desperate of circumstances. There was a reason for Cogline's involvement with this gathering beyond what any of them knew. He glanced wearily at the old man, who stood uncomfortable, a number of feet closer than the rest of them to the waters of the Scions. He knew all about the shadow, and somehow he had spoken more than once with Allanon, somehow again. He was the only living human being to have done so since the Druid's death 300 years ago. Pa thought a moment about the stories of Cogline in the time of Brenomsford. A half-crazed old man, then, wielding magic against the moored race like some sort of broom against dust. That's the picture the tales conjured up. Well, he wasn't like that now. He was controlled, cranky and eccentric. Yes, but mostly controlled. Cranky? He knew that what he was about, enough so that he didn't seem particularly pleased with any sort of it. He hadn't said that, of course, but Pa wasn't blind. There was a flash of light from somewhere far off in the night skies, a momentary brightness that winked away instantly and was gone. A life ended, a new life begun, his mother used to say. He sighed. He hadn't thought of his parents much since the flight out of Varfleet. He felt a twinge of guilt. He wondered if they were all right. He wondered if he would ever see them again. His jaw tightened with determination. Of course he would see them again. Things would work out. Allanon would have answers to give them. About the uses of the magic. About the wish song. The reasons for the dreams. What to do about the shadow and the Federation. All of it. Allanon would know. Time slipped away, minutes into hours, the night steadily working its way toward dawn. Pa moved over to talk with Cole, needing now to be close to his brother. The others shifted, stretched, and moved about uneasily. Eyes grew heavy and senses dulled. Far east, the first faint twinges of the coming dawn appeared against the dark night. He's not coming, Pa thought dismally. And in answer, the waters of the Scions heaved upward, and the valley shuddered as if something beneath it had come awake. Rock shifted and grated with the movement, and the members of the little company went into a protective crouch. The lake began to boil, the waters to thrash, and spray shot skyward with a sharp hiss. Voices cried out, inhuman and filled with longing. They rose out of the earth, straining against bonds that were invisible to the 9 gathered in the valley, but which they could all readily imagine. Walker's arms flung wide against the sound, scattering bits of silver dust that flared into a protective curtain. The others cupped their ears protectively, but nothing could shut the sound away. Then the earth began to rumble, thunder that rolled out of its depths and eclipsed even the cries. Cogline's thick thin arm lifted, pointing rigidly to the lake. The Hatron exploded into a whirlpool, waters churning madly, and from out of the depths rose. Allanon! Pa cried out excitedly against the fury of sounds. It was the Druid. They knew him instantly, all of them. They remembered him from the tales of 3 centuries ago. They recognized him in their heart of hearts. That secret, innermost whisper of certainty. He rose into the night air, light flaring about him, released somehow from the waters of the Hatron. He lifted free of the lake to stand upon its surface, a shade from some netherworld cast in transparent grey, shimmering faintly against the dark. He was cloaked and cowled from head to foot, a tall and powerful image of the man that once was. His long, sharp-featured, bearded face turned toward them, his penetrating eyes sweeping clear their defences, laying bare their lives for examination and judgment. Balmsford shivered. The churning of the waters subsided, the rumbling ceased. The wails died into a hush that hung suspended across the expanse of the valley. The shade moved toward them, seemingly without haste, as if to discredit Cogline's word that it could only stay briefly in the world of men. Its eyes never left their own. Pa had never been so frightened. He wanted to run. He wanted to flee for his life, but he stood rooted to the spot, unable to move. The shade came to the water's edge and stopped. From somewhere deep within their minds, the members of the little company heard it speak. I am Allanon, that was. A murmur of voices filled the air, voices of things no longer living, echoing the shade's words. I have called you to me in your dreams. Pa, Ren, and Walker, children of Shannara, you have been summoned to me. The wheel of time comes around again, for rebirthing of the magic, for honoring the trust that was given you, for beginning and ending many things. The voice, deep and sonorous within them, grew rough with feelings that scraped the bone. The Shadowin come. They come with a promise of destruction, sweeping over the 4 lands with the certainty of day after night. There was a pause as the shade's lean hands wove a vision of his words through the fabric of the night air, a tapestry that hung momentarily in brilliant colours against the misted black. The dreams he had sent them came alive, sketches of nightmarish madness. They faded and were gone. The voice whispered soundlessly, "It shall be so, if you do not heed." Pa felt the words reverberate through his body like a rumble from the earth. He wanted to look at the others, wanted to see what was on their faces, but the voice of the shade held him spellbound. Not so Walker Bow. His uncle's voice was as chilling as the shade's. "Tell us what you would, Allanon. Be done with it." Allanon's flat gaze shifted to the dark figure and settled on him. Walker Bow staggered back a step in spite of himself. The shade pointed. "Destroy the Shadowin. They subvert the people of the races, creeping into their bodies, taking their forms as they choose, becoming them, using them, turning them into misshapen giants and maddened woodswoman you have already encountered, and into things worse still. No one prevents it. No one will, if not you. But what are we supposed to do? Pa asked at once, almost without thinking. The shade had been substantial when it had first appeared, a ghost that had taken on again the fullness of life. But already the lines and shadings were beginning to pale, and he who was once Allanon shimmered with the translucent and ethereal inconsistency of smoke. Shannara, child, there are balances to be restored if the Shadowin are to be destroyed. Not for a time, not in this age only, but forever. Magic is needed. Magic to put an end to the misuse of life. Magic to restore the fabric of man's existence in this mortal world. That magic is your heritage. Yours, Wrens and Walkers. You must acknowledge it and embrace it. The hatred was beginning to roil again, and the members of the little company fell back before its hiss and spray, all but Cogline, who stood rock solid before the others, his head bowed upon his frail chest. The shade of Allanon seemed to swell suddenly against the night, rising up before them like a giant, the robes spread wide, the shade's eyes fixed on Pa, and the Valman felt the stab of an invisible finger penetrate his breast. Pa Omsford, bearer of the wish song's promise, I charge you with recovering the sword of Shannara. Only through the sword can truth be revealed, and only through truth shall the Shadowin be overcome. Take up the sword, Pa. Wield it according to the dictates of your heart. The truth of the Shadowin shall be yours to discover. The eyes shifted. Wren, child of hidden, forgotten lives, yours is a charge of equal importance. There can be no healing of the lands or of their people without the elves of Fairy. Find them and return them to the world of men. Find them, Rover girl, only then can the sickness end. The Hatchorn erupted with a booming cough. And Walker Bow, you of no belief, seek that belief and the understanding necessary to sustain it. Search out the last of the curatives that is needed to give life back to the lands. Search out disappeared Paranor and restore the Druids. There was an astonishment mirrored in the faces of all, and for an instant it smothered the shouts of disbelief that struggled to surface. Then everyone was yelling at once, the words tumbling over one another as each sought to make himself heard above the tumult. But the cries disappeared instantly as the shade's arms came up in a sweep that caused the earth to rumble anew. Seize! The waters of the Hatchorn spit and hissed behind him as he faced them. It was growing lighter now in these. Dawn was threatening to break. The shade's voice was again a whisper. You would know more? I wish that it could be so. But I have told you what I can. I cannot tell you more. I lack the power and depth that I possessed in life. I am permitted to see only bits and pieces of the world that was, or the future that will be. I cannot find what is hidden from you, for I am sealed away in a world where substance has small meaning. Each day the memory of it slipped further from me. I sense what is and what is possible. That must suffice. Therefore, pay heed to me. I cannot come with you. I cannot guide you. I cannot answer the questions you bring with you, not of magic or family or self-worth. All that you must do for yourselves. My time in the Four Lands is gone, children of Shannara, as it once was for Bremen, so it is now for me. I am not chained by shackles of failure as was he, but I am chained nevertheless. Death limits both time and being. I am the past. The future of the Four Lands belongs to you, and to you alone. But you ask impossible things of us, Rin snapped desperately. Worse, you ask things that should never be, Walker raged. Druids, come again? Paranor restored? The Shade's reply came softly. I ask for what must be. You have the skills, the heart, the right, and the need to do what I have asked. Believe what I have told you. Do as I have said. Then will the Shadowwind be destroyed. Pa felt his throat tighten in desperation. Allanon was beginning to fade. Where shall we look? He cried out frantically. Where do we begin our search? Allanon, you have to tell us. There was no answer. The Shade withdrew further. No, you cannot go, Walker howled suddenly. The Shade began to sink into the waters of the Hatchel. Druid, I forbid it! Walker screamed in fury, throwing off sparks of his own magic as he flung his arms out as if to hold the other back. The whole of the valley seemed to explode in response, the earth shaking until rocks bounced and rattled ferociously, the air filling with wind that whipped down out of the mountains as if summoned, the Hatchel churning in a maelstrom of rage, the dead crying out, and the Shade of Allanon bursting into flame. The members of the little company were thrown flat as the forces about them collided, and everything was caught up in a whirlwind of light and sound. At last, it was still and dark again. They lifted their heads cautiously and looked about. The valley was empty of shades and spirits, and all that accompanied them. The earth was at rest once more, and the Hatchel, a silent, placid stretch of luminous that reflected the sun's brilliant image from where it lifted out of the darkness in the east. Palms but climbed slowly to his feet. He felt that he might have awakened from a dream.